Hey guys, Frosty Knives here, back with another EU book review. Today we'll be taking a look at part 2 of the Gambit story. So we'll be taking a look at Karen Miller's Star Wars, Clone Wars, Gambit, Siege. And this is the second half of the story that we reviewed in the last video. So this book was published in 2010. And the story clocks in at 382 pages. There is an excerpt at the end of this book from another novel that brings the page count a little higher, but the actual story is 382 pages. And this is the last of the oversized trade paperback type novels for the Clone Wars period. So where did we leave off in the last story? We left off with Obi Wan and Anakin making a brave escape from the Separatists and from Loch Durd, from his complex in Lantiba City, and they busted out of there and they were blowing off into the night. And that's where the book ended. And we had a couple of questions that were still left unresolved. So where did we end up? Well, the book starts with Obi Wan and Anakin blasting through the night. And eventually, they crash their ground car. They don't know where they are. They have no sense of idea of where they are or if there's any civilization. They crash their ground car, and they eventually come to a village called Torbel. Torbel or Torbel. They come to this village where they're mining, and it's one of the primary mines for Damatite. And they are still under the guise of their hidden identities. So they make it to the village and they try to convince the people that they're just, lost and alone and trying to get back home and whatnot. And the villagers take them in. And that's the entirety of the story. Now, the entire story takes place in this village, mostly with Obi-Wan and Anakin trying to figure out what they're going to do, right? They're in this village now. They're sort of sheltered. They have no food, no water, no transportation, no communications. They've got to get a communication to the Republic, try to tell them what's going on. That's the bulk of the story. The bulk of the story centers around this village. They wind up getting into the good graces of the villagers. The villagers do eventually find out that they are Jedi. They're not natives, but Obi-Wan and Anakin smooth that over. They eventually do get a message out to the Republic to let them know what's going on and that they're still alive and that they need help. The Republic does wind up sending a battle fleet after them. The planet itself is now surrounded by separatist forces being led by General Grievous. So they do send battle fleets to them. They do engage the separatists. The lab where they're making the bioweapon does eventually get destroyed. The bioweapon does eventually get destroyed. They do eventually create an antidote for the bioweapon. They do not capture Loch Durd. He gets away, and they do wind up rescuing Obi-Wan and Anakin, and that's pretty much the whole resolution of the story. If there doesn't seem like there was a lot going on, it's because there really wasn't a lot going on. It was basically them in this village trying to figure out how to contact the Republic, how to get help, how are they going to get off this planet. Eventually, Loch Durd realizes where they are. He knows that they're in this village, so he sends his entire contingent of battle droids to the village to go after them. They raise a shield over the village, and for like a good chunk, like the last probably 25% of the book, it's Obi-Wan and Anakin and the villagers underneath this security dome, surrounded by thousands of battle droids and super battle droids, And then literally all they're doing is shooting at the shield for like day and night, like days on end. They're just shooting at the shield, trying to bring it down. And that goes on for a good long time. That's where the title Siege comes from. They eventually hunker down into this village under this shield and waiting for help to come, surrounded by droids who are continually shooting to try to get into the village. And that's like the whole end of it. That scenario is a good like 25% of the book at the end. Like that's the whole ending. Of course, the siege eventually gets broken when Mace Windu and Ahsoka and the clones and the 501st come barreling in to save the day, and to rescue everybody. So we had some questions that we wanted answered, right, from the last video that we were going to hope. And now I think there were 3 questions. One of them was about General Grievous's ability to jam the communications systems of the Republic ships. We never really find out who actually did the jamming. It's just said in the book that some unknown separatist agents had infiltrated the shipyards and had created this program that was going out to the ships that would allow Grievous to jam them. We don't really ever find out who did it. They do eventually overcome this. They find a way around it, and they're able to overcome his... And we're really not told how they do it. They just say, yeah, we did it. We fixed it. We're good. Next. That's not a problem anymore. Second question we had was about the antidote. And yes, they do eventually create an antidote. Bail Organa gets one of his friends that he knows who's a scientist. His name is Trin Netzel. And he comes to Coruscant, and he eventually does create an antidote. He spends most of the book saying, I can't do it. Because I'm missing a key ingredient, and I don't know what it is. That key ingredient happens to be a plant that grows on Lantib. And so once he gets that information about the plant, he's able to create an antidote. So they do create the antidote. Now, one of the major things that does actually happen in the book, which was kind of shocking, was Lock Durd really wants to get into the good graces of Count Dooku. And he really wants to show his relevance. So he says, well, in order to really prove my relevance to the Separatists, I'm going to launch a test attack. He wants to test his bioweapon on a world to prove that it's actually effective. So he does. He launches a bioweapon attack against the planet Chandrila. Now, Chandrila is Mon Mothma's homeworld. And he launches the bioweapon attack on the planet. Thousands upon thousands of people die. It gets the entire Republic in an uproar. Palpatine's in an uproar because he's like, crap, they're not supposed to know about this yet, but yet somehow they know about this, and that's bad. So it was kind of a bold move for Karen Miller to do, to launch a bioweapon attack against one of the known worlds. So that happened in the book, and that was pretty intense, pretty bold, pretty jarring that they did that. And that they specifically chose Mon Mothma's homeworld. Talk about that in a minute. So that happened. And then, of course, the third question that we had is what was going to happen to Obi Wan and Anakin. Well, we know what happens to Obi Wan and Anakin. Obi Wan and Anakin, I would just like to say, they went through hell in this book. I mean, we're talking about fights and beat 'em ups and crashes and dehydration, and they don't eat for weeks, and they don't drink for weeks. They're literally living off the Force. The book almost felt like, let's see how much punishment we can inflict upon Obi-Wan and Anakin without killing them and still make them believably functional. Because they really put them through the ringer in this one. It was, you got to the point where you say, how much more can these two people endure? Because they've done everything to them, and they're literally at the end of the book, they're like skin and bones, and they're like still using the Force and fighting battle droids and trying to stay conscious. So this was, let's see how bad we can beat up our two main characters kind of book. Overall, it was good. It felt a little drawn out. I don't know why these two books were two books, why the story was told in two books. I feel if they had taken some things and edited them out of the two books, they could have made this one book. They could have easily trimmed some things down and given us one novel instead of two. Two novels almost felt a little drawn out, a little bit bloated, a little bit not draggy, because the books didn't really drag in any way. They were easy to read. They went along at a good pace. It just felt like there had to be a lot of filler and ancillary events to go into the books to sort of flesh out the fact that they're two books that are close to 400 pages each. And I think they could have trimmed them down, made them into one book. But they didn't. But there are still some things I like about this book. Let's talk about the things that I actually liked about this book. We get to see Mon Mothma in this book. This is the first time we see Mon Mothma in this book. See, they're slowly, over the course of these books, building the foundation of the Rebel Alliance. So, we get Padme. And then they introduce Bail. And then we got Padme and Bail. And we see their relationship start to grow. Then, in another book, in the book Wild Space, they add Obi Wan to the mix. Obi Wan and Bail. Now we see their relationship sort of grow. So now you've got three components of what will eventually become a Rebel Alliance, right? Now you've got Padme and Bail and Obi Wan. Because Anakin's always sort of an ancillary character to this. And now they brought in Mon Mothma, the final piece of what will eventually become the Rebel Alliance, right? Because, as you know, it's Bail and Mon Mothma, and then eventually Leia, right? So, because this is pre-Leia, we have Padme sort of standing in for her. So now we have the completed foundation of the Rebel Alliance, the leadership of the Rebel Alliance. And I'm really glad that we saw Mon Mothma in this. And they chose to send the bioweapon onto Mon Mothma's home world. Now she has a personal stake in forming the Rebel Alliance. Her homeworld was attacked. And of course, we know this is eventually going to become the Empire. So now, as far as Mothma goes, now it's personal. So now we have all the foundations and the ingredients that we need for what will eventually become the Rebels. And I like that they introduced it. And I like that they introduced it slowly, over time, piece by piece. Now we have the foundation. And going forward, when we get to Revenge of the Sith, now we're like, aha, here's where all the pieces are going to start forming this rebellion against what's going on. So that was good. Talk about Palpatine. Now, in most of the books so far, Palpatine and Sidious are treated as two different people. Now, we know that Palpatine and Sidious are the same person, but in the books, when he's Palpatine, he's Palpatine. When he's Sidious, he's Sidious. And we've always sort of assumed that Sidious was a mask that Palpatine wore. But in this book, Karen Miller puts forth that it's actually the reverse. That he's always Darth Sidious, but Palpatine is the mask he has to wear when he wants to do public stuff. So the perspective that we get from Palpatine in this book is that he's always Sidious, but he has to put that Palpatine mask on when he needs to do his Supreme Chancellor stuff. And you find out through the book that he hates it. He hates Palpatine. He thinks Palpatine is weak and ineffective. He doesn't like him. He has to do all these things that make him feel icky, right? All these things, he has to play the role of a benevolent Supreme Chancellor, and Sidious hates it. So this book really comes at us from the position of he's always Darth Sidious, and when he has to step into the mask of Palpatine, he does that. But at his core, He's always the Sith Lord. And I like that they put that in there. I like we get to see that perspective of Sidious being the one who's always in charge, and Palpatine being the mask that he has to wear. So that was good. The battles were fine. This is the first time where we're starting to see friction between the Supreme Chancellor and the Jedi and Padme. Friction is starting to build. This is the first time Padme and Bail are starting to think, why is Palpatine acting this way? Why isn't he being kind of helpful? Why is he doing this? And in this book, Yoda flat out distrusts him. At this point, Yoda flat out distrusts Palpatine, and he makes decisions for the Jedi, and he doesn't let Palpatine in on it. He's like, no, Palpatine doesn't control the Jedi. He doesn't tell the Jedi what to do. We do. So at this point now, there is a frictional division between Palpatine and Yoda. And Sidious hates Yoda. And Yoda is beginning to really distrust Palpatine. And so isn't Bail. And so isn't Padme. Padme doesn't understand why he's like this, because she's always known him as the benevolent person, the nice politician, and he's not anymore. So I like that we're seeing this friction, right? And we're going to probably see more friction as this is all leading into the explosion that's going to happen in Revenge of the Sith. So these are all nice tie-ins, all really done well. Even though I felt the book was a little long and bloated, it felt a little draggy, it felt like some filler was in it, I still rated this a 4, because I think as a whole, if you take the two books as one whole story from beginning to end, I think it deserves a 4. I think it was well done, albeit maybe a little bit too long. Could have been shaved down, could have been in one book, but still an enjoyable story. And I have to say that these 5 books that we just read, the Clone Wars, and then Wild Space, and No Prisoners, and the 2 Siege books, 2 Gambit books, these are my favorites so far of the Clone Wars. They were really well done. They were fun to read, easy to read, well characterizations, good handle on the characters, really well done. I thought they were so far the best of the Clone Wars books, and I really, really did enjoy them. So now what are we going to read? Where do we go from here? Well, here's where we're going to diverge a little bit. So if you read my sort of proposed timeline, you would see that the next book that we're supposed to read is Republic Commando True Colors. And I sat down and thought about why was I disliking the Clone Wars novels so much? Why was I? Was I disliking all of them, or was it just something about them that I wasn't liking? And I realized that the problem was that I just threw it on the floor by mistake. I don't like the Republic Commando books. I don't. If you like the Republic Commando books, that's fine, because this is my opinion. This is what I like and dislike, but I don't like them. I find them a drag, and I really don't care about the characters that are in the books. And I was dreading reading that book, True Colors. That was the issue that I was having, was those commando books were really bogging my reading down. So I have decided that I'm going to skip that one. Not even going to read it. So we're going to go on to the next book. And so the next book that we're going to be reading is MedStar 1 Battle Surgeons. That's the next book we're going to be reading. And then we're going to keep going from there. So here we are, skipping Republic Commando book, right there on the floor, and going to book 1 of the MedStar duology. So guys, that is my review of Star Wars, Clone Wars, Gambit, Siege. Did you read them? Did you like them? What did you think of them? What are your opinions on those books? What are your opinions on the Clone Wars so far? What are your opinions on me skipping a book and going right to the one next to it? Put it all in the comments. Let me know what you think about it. And as always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Give it a subscribe. Share it around. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Tell those people that like the Republic Commando books and ask them why do they like the Republic Commando books. And as always, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And I'll see you in the next video.